Welcome to the Leverage Your Potential podcast. This podcast is hosted by the Director and Assistant Director of Menlo College's Office of Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad, Dylan Houle and Kelly Davis, in partnership with Menlo's Content Creation Club.
Welcome, everybody, to the Leverage Your Potential podcast. I'm Bianca Barros. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm a student worker here at the Career Services Office. I'm also a junior at Menlo College studying finance. I'm here today with Sam Baker, Brenda Flores-Reyes, and Colton Wirth. We're here today to talk about the best practices of working remotely. They are all Menlo students who have done remote work now in these times of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're really eager to hear a little bit of you guys on the best practices on how to do that. Let's go ahead and start with Sam.
Well, thanks for having me on, Bianca. I'm really stoked to be on this podcast. So I'm a senior at Menlo College, graduating in December 2020, and I'm majoring in finance. And that's pretty related to my job, although I'm working at a startup, so it's a little bit of everything. I'm a financial analyst intern at Casca Designs, which is a footwear and 3D printing startup in Vancouver, British Columbia, which is my hometown. On campus at Menlo, I'm also involved with Venture Capital Club and Oaks Innovation Club.
Awesome.
Hi, I am Brenda, and I am a senior who will be graduating in a couple of weeks with a degree in entrepreneurship. It's honestly been like an amazing 4 years at Menlo, where I've been involved in Rotaract and became a Stanford University Innovation Fellow, and I've served Menlo's community by also being in the Oaks Innovation Club with Sam and Bianca, Wild, also with Bianca, and doing events like TEDx and Startup Weekend. So I'm super excited to be on this cast, talk about remote work. I also work at a startup. It's named Intrida, and we do research and develop software for different types of industries such as aerospace, oil, and mining. So super excited to be here.
Awesome. And what is your job title, Brenda?
So I run most of their marketing, but same as Sam said, you do a little bit of everything. So communications and just whatever they ask me to do, I try it out.
Putting on all of these different hats.
Yes.
The type of learning that we all love.
Of course.
What about you, Colton?
Yeah, so I'm a senior as well, graduating in a few weeks, and my majors are finance and marketing. And at Menlo, I've been in the finance and marketing club, as well as been on the basketball team. And then currently I am a program manager for the Oracle Analytics product.
One of the things that we're mentioning that even before the coronavirus, a lot of people were working from home, but it was a little bit more considered as a perk. You were allowed to work from home a couple days a month, and it was the day that you could relax a little bit. But now that everyone's gone remote, I think a lot of the companies are wondering things like, how do we maintain our corporate culture? How do we onboard new hires? And how do we facilitate the cross-company collaborations? For those of you who were working remotely before the pandemic started, which is Sam and Brenda, what was the onboarding experience like when you started? How did the company get you trained, engaged, and brought you into the company culture? And then for those of you who had to switch midstream from in-person to 100% remote, like what happened to you, Colton, what were the strategies that Oracle used to keep your team engaged and excited? Let's start again with Sam, Brenda, and then Colton.
Sure. So I can definitely say on this one that, and I think Brenda might be in a similar situation to me, but being with a startup, the onboarding process was super, super informal.
Yep.
And really just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. But I know that as far as training, it was, since it was remote right away, it was, here's a project that has been on my plate for a long time and I haven't got done. get this done, send it back to me and see what happens, like, let's see how you do. And I really kind of like that work environment to begin with. And I think that sort of learning by doing really lends itself to the remote work environment in the first place. So carrying on to this coronavirus, I think, after there's going to be, with our generation anyways, a lot more people that are really comfortable with learning that way and just kind of getting thrown into the fire versus going through a super structured, more corporate process. And so I think that entrepreneurial mindset anyways really lends itself to working remotely. So for me, the onboarding process was just, here's this project, here's our team, here's everybody's contact information. When can you start?
Wow.
Yeah, mine I think was, well, I don't think it was very informal, but it was really personal too. Like I said, the CEO, he's from England, and he was traveling out here in February for Startup Grind, and I met him through a friend, and then we met up at Startup Grind, and after that we just kicked it off, and then I met the entire team. And I'm in more of the role of like communications and like the marketing side of the company, and so we're very small, so meeting with everybody was really cool. Right now, I think the biggest challenge of it is time zones for me. I'm the one all the way out here in California, and we have, like they're in Budapest, India, Cambridge, so like they're all over the place. And so normally it's like my 6 or 7 a.m.s and they're the later time. But I think it's a really cool opportunity for just all companies to, redefine and like make bold shifts in their company. And I think that goes back to what Sam was saying with like that entrepreneurial mindset is hard and it's scary, but sometimes you have to take those risks.
Totally.
Yeah, I can't really relate to both of you. I mean, sort of, I guess with Oracle, the company is pretty much based remote. Almost over 60% of the company works remote in general because they work across the globe. But I mean, they do have like formal onboarding processes. Like I went to a class that was like 3 hours to onboard, and they do it every week with like hundreds of people. So it's like they just have formal processes, but it's a lot like what you guys are doing. Like there's it's not like your boss is right there behind your back. Like my boss is in Washington, I'm in California. So it's still a lot of like, just when you're interacting with people, it's over email. You're just seeing a name and a voice. You have no idea who they are, what they like, anything. So I guess that's kind of what we tried to get better at during this situation is just like at the start of every meeting, like talking about how their day's going, whether, where they're at, different things to make it more personable, to try to learn about each other and develop relationships. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's completely true. You just see an email and you don't know how the person looks like. And if you were working there for a long time, you would have already known all these people. But because you were so new when the shift came, I do see that it brings in an extra challenge on keeping the teams engaged if you're so new to it. And to complement what Sam and Brenda were saying, I really agree with what you guys are saying with that this will bring in a new shift to learn by doing. I really love this process of here's a project, figure out how this will work. I really like strategizing and seeing what needs to be done. I feel a lot more challenged and it's a lot more fun to me than just getting something that has very like strict instructions and a step-by-step, very bureaucratic process. I think this is, for us, an entrepreneurial mindset, brings in a lot more challenges. And I think the world might be shifting to this, as you, Brenda and Sam said. So kind of on this topic still, do you guys see that the COVID-19 pandemic changing the way all teams and organizations operate going forward? Let's start with Colton this time.
I mean, definitely. I feel like people and companies are getting used to working more remote, and they're finding out that there's some things they can get done or more tasks they can accomplish because they're more focused. But also I saw a study that on average the worker works 3 hours more because they're working remote. So I definitely find myself working a lot more because it's not like I don't have to commute back and forth. I don't have a certain like work schedule time. Like I can be on call anytime. So people definitely take advantage of that, and that's just what I've seen. And I think from a company standpoint, they're going to want to get the most out of their employees, and if that means they're working 3 more hours a day voluntarily, like they're going to do that. So
Totally. And I think saving on the commuting time would be a big thing. And it's also, as we have been seeing, a great impact for when it comes to climate change. We have seen skies getting blue, and we have seen all the pollution disappearing. And I think I really think that's awesome. And I think this is a wake-up call. And maybe, or in my opinion, I think it won't turn to, of course, I don't think it will stay as it is right now because there are a lot of things that cannot be done remotely. So, but I think it will be a lot more hybrid than it was before. Maybe a 60-40, a 50-50 kind of schedule. Brenda and Sam, how do you guys think corporations will look like after this is all behind us?
Well, everything will become more digital, as like we've all said. And because we are in a time of crisis right now, and I think we can take away that businesses should do bold shifts. You said we brought up the climate change and all of these things, and now there's all new business models rising out of this. I've been very involved in getting into circular economy, where people become more mindful of where things come from, and being in listening to people in aerospace and like all these different mindsets out there that are very structured and have a lot of corporations. It's really exciting to see all the new possibilities that are coming, but it comes with a lot of like fear because no one knows, it's all like you're gonna fail or you're gonna learn from your failure, and that's all about like innovation. And so I think a lot of corporations are being challenged because we've been hearing a lot of buzzwords, design thinking, innovation, but now everyone's getting tested on what that truly means for them. So many of them might embrace it, but not really show it to, their clients or show it to their employees. So I think we're in a time where a lot of shifts will take place. And I think just being aware of everything and doing the best you can is like the most exciting part of everything. So
if I'll jump in here, I think for me, and this is kind of a different way to look at it maybe, but the number one reason for why I think this will be a lasting shift in the workplace is because of the cost of housing. And I think that for sort of the millennial generation, there's been just a massive flow into urbanization, and everybody's living in the city. The cost of, especially here in the Bay Area, the cost of housing is just not really doable for the majority of college students coming out, getting their first full-time job. I think the prospect of being able to go actually buy a home in a rural area and work remotely is going to be way too attractive to the majority of workers, and companies will just be forced to offer those remote roles for, say, 70-80% of their workforce. Basically anyone that's not doing business development needs to be shaking hands in person. So I think that might be the biggest reason why this shift happens, is just simply economics, cost of housing.
We're all going to be digital nomads.
Wow. I agree. And I think that brings in so many other things, such as hiring an employee in California costs a lot more because of the cost of living. But if you have your company in California and you can hire somebody that is going to do the same work but from another state, then it will reduce even the salary costs of these companies. And one of the things that came to my mind when, Brenda, you were talking about design thinking is for example, what we're having right now at Menlo College, we had to also do this shift in the middle of the semester. And classes who were designed to be in person were shifted to be distance learning. And it's different than courses who were developed to be online, right? And I think when you're talking about the new business models that are coming from this crisis, I think those will be the type of works that will work absolutely right with remote work, because it was born in an environment like this and it was developed to succeed in this environment. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of that. And the point that you bring as well, Sam, with housing, I think all of this will make a lot of sense. Now, unfortunately, we all know that we have internships in the summer, and a lot of the students from the summer 2020 cohort have been impacted by the cancellation of internships and by how more difficult a lot of companies that stop hiring and all of that. But there are a lot of students who had their internships and will be doing them remotely this summer, which that is pretty exciting. So you guys have all been working remotely for a little while now. What are some strategies that you can share with them on how to be successful working remotely? And what are some of the myths that you can debunk? Let's start with Brenda and then go Sam and Colton.
Well, working from home or even doing classes on home, it's challenging. My brain tends to go faster than what I say and do. So that goes, being present in work and in class is really, it is a challenge. But a couple of things that work for me and I recommend others do is have a routine in the mornings. It's super easy to wake up like 2 or 3 minutes before your morning call or something, because you literally just open your laptop and you're there. But I've done, at least, wake up an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes before to, wash your face, have a cup of water, if you like coffee, whatever, do that. And I always change out of my pajamas, because when I'm in my comfy clothes, I feel just relaxed and I'm not going to get work done. So I'd leave that for the weekends or starting Fridays. But Monday, regular days, at least put a dress on if you're, or something that's still comfy and cute that you just feel like I'm going to conquer the day. That's what I do. And a cup of coffee in the mornings, and set yourself a morning routine. That's what I've been doing.
Of course.
Yeah.
What do you... Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Sorry. I was definitely going to say those are all great strategies, Brenda. And I know this morning in our meeting, I was definitely 2 minutes awake before that. So yeah, no, it's a great strategy. I can definitely confirm that. No, I just think one thing that I always had heard from people who worked remotely was that when you're working remotely, you might feel like you're always on the clock. And I don't think that's totally true. I think it actually, if anything, even though like Colton said, you end up probably working more hours than you would, no commute. I think it actually feels like you're not on the clock even when you are working. And that might seem counterintuitive, but because you're picking and choosing usually the sort of your peak hours when you want to be getting the most work done, it almost feels so much more smooth, so much more efficient, and not like, you're punching in, punching out. It's a totally different experience. So I think that's a positive part of it. I do think it's, as far as a difficulty that most people might not expect is, well, actually you probably would expect it, but the lateral communication, I think, with people who maybe not your boss, but people who are at the same level as you on sort of an organizational chart, it is definitely tougher to make those kind of connections and get the sort of informal communication that you might get in a regular work environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Both of you, I mean, I have the same exact problems. And it's just, it's a tough thing to transition to, especially being in classrooms, this is my first remote job. We're working not face to face. So, I mean, my biggest challenge working remote is just finding somewhere quiet to take calls and do meetings. The amount of times my dog is in the background, or someone's running up or there's people yelling outside or whatever. I've seen it all, whether it's in mine or in someone else's. So just kind of like the formality of having everything quiet is out the window. But for me, the biggest thing is just relationships and creating relationships, seeing face to face, and like being in constant communication, even while working remote. I guess if you're like right next door to your boss, like you can always pop in, hey, I have a question, I need help on this. Like for me now, I have to like I ping him on the messenger, and then I have to wait for him to get back to me, or he might be in a meeting and who knows. So what our group does is we have a daily stand-up meeting, which every meeting we go over what we're doing on the day, what our challenges were, and like how we can help each other. So I think this is like really big, especially if you're on the intern level and you're trying to learn a lot. This is like a great opportunity to talk it over with your peers or, people who can help you out with the work. And then my last thing is blocking out time. I started doing this on my calendar because people will just book me for meetings whenever. And I have a full day of meetings, and then I go and I'm like, I didn't accomplish anything. I've been in meetings all day. So I go and block out like 2-3 hours a day, usually in the afternoon, just to like my work time, and I prioritize my issues. And I find that really helpful. And especially like if you're an intern, I mean, you want to get your work done and you prioritize it. So that can be helpful.
Totally. I see a lot of people that do that normally, right? Some people block some days that they can be full on producing and not being disturbed by meetings. And I love the idea of the stand-up meeting that everybody gets in alignment. I'm also working remotely for the career office, and this is one of the strategies that we've been using. I've been working 3 days a week, and every day that I work at the end of my shift, I either communicate with Dylan or Kelly. What did I do? What do I need to do next? It really helps me to get a sense of how much I'm progressing. And for me, I have a few hours, so I just have them set in the morning. And I think it makes it a little bit easier because I said, okay, this is my starting time. This is my ending time. I'll just be working the whole time. I think if I had like the whole day open and there's X amount of work I need to do throughout the whole day, I think I would procrastinate a lot more versus having a fixed schedule. So I think if I had to give a tip for the upcoming interns, I think it would be set your fixed schedule, even if your employer doesn't do that for you. And I think this can really, really help. And as Sam said, target your hours that you have, you are most productive, and that can really help you. So you guys already mentioned some of the things that you like the most, but that's just in comparison, what do you guys think are the biggest advantages and what are the disadvantages? I know, Colton, you mentioned the background noise and finding this quiet space. I just imagine if we had kids. Imagine babies crying and then kids running around. I think this is a lot harder for the other generation than it is for us, because we only have the dogs and cats to worry about, and they do cause a lot of distraction in our meetings. But just coming back to thinking, what is the thing you like the most and the thing you dislike the most? What would that be? Let's start over with Sam, then Colton, and then after Brenda.
Sure. I think, honestly, the biggest challenge for me, there's all the small challenges that, dealing with background noise and making sure that you wake up in time to get on your meeting and not just being in your pajamas all day. I think for me, the hardest thing would be at a bigger level, if I, continue doing this, would be the lack of maybe personal relationships and like literally friendships that you build, because I do think that's something that, your work is enjoyable because of who you do it with. And so I think if there's no interaction, it can be difficult to build friendships over time and have those lasting relationships that, are your not only great in your personal life, but your best professional connections as well down the road. So I think that is the disadvantage that would make it tough. The main advantage is obviously just the pure convenience of everything. And I think although being in your pajamas all day could not be the best, I think comfort does bring out the best in people. If you're in a comfortable situation, you're going to do your best work. So those are my advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I just think in my case, like, I just got used. I was my first week in the actual headquarters of Oracle, and I got to experience all the amenities and all the restaurants and gyms and, you know, all the things they have, which your first job out of college, like, that's what you live for. And so just getting that taken away, I was like, oh man, that's tough. And then just, I guess, I love working in my own space, creating my own desk, and not having to like worry about distractions, or I like to control my environment. So this is a lot easier for me. But there's not a lot of disadvantages, which is weird to think about. Like, I always thought of a job as like in person right there, but I don't know. I'm liking it so far.
Great. What about you, Brenda?
For me, my biggest like disadvantage, well, I think it's more like a struggle that like a challenge that I'm facing is balancing, you know, like my work, you know, what I do, and family time. You know, my mom, like, I came home because of this, and like I'm with my mom and my grandpa, and so they see me that I'm on my laptop the entire time, and they think I'm not doing anything productive, or no. And so it's like, no, like I have things to do. And so, you know, finding that quiet space within my house is actually the hardest thing to do. I tend to be, you know, very active. I can't stay still. And even within my house, like I go around running in my backyard. So it's like finding just ways to quiet my brain down. And like I said earlier, my brain goes faster than what I say and do. So I've been, you know, finding ways to, you know, just be more present, which, you know, I think that's pros and like cons, because I'm working like truly within myself to like figure things out, and also so that doesn't affect my work, and not be distracted a lot, because, you know, as in a startup, you especially, you know, I was employee number 7, so I have to hold myself accountable. And if, you know, I work with other people to get things done, it's just, I don't want to bring other things into our conversations and just get work done. So I don't know, it's for me, it's been a hard transition, you know, being stuck at home or being at home.
I totally understand what you say. Just a little background for the audience. I'm from Brazil, and I'm in Brazil right now because of the pandemic, and my family speaks Portuguese. So my mom just sees me the whole day sitting in front of the laptop, tons of screen time, speaking English, doesn't understand anything that I'm saying. She has no idea when I'm having class, when I'm working, or when I'm talking to my friends. So and then sometimes when it's a friend's call, she walks in and then she just leaves. But then when it's a very important meeting, she comes in screaming and telling me what to do. And I'm like, try to mute the call right away. But I've been having tons of funny stories with this.
Yes.
So yeah, I can just imagine. And Colton and Sam, you both mentioned the personal relationships as an important part, and it's an important missing piece, right, of working from home. And I totally see that, like working in an office and being able to just ask everybody around, a little bit of help with what you're doing, and just seeing people, right? I think we're all feeling how much this is missing in our lives. But as a matter of fact, all 3 of you are master networkers in your job and outside of it. How are you guys continuing to build your network remotely? And what are some pieces of advice for the interns that are coming for the summer, and for Menlo students in general? What can they do to keep networking even in this online environment? Let's start with Brenda, then Sam, and then Colton.
What I've experienced so far I've attended more events recently than last, semester. Also, I'm trying to learn more about the space I'm going to be I'm working in more with like aerospace and that like whole network. So I've been attending, XR workshops, more about the oil industry, just to get myself informed. And this is through my boss, because I told him since the beginning, this is a new space for me. So I recommend, if you're doing an intern, that it's a complete new space for everybody, to be vocal and say, hey, I'm still learning. Can you guide me? Are there any articles I should be reading? And normally you sign up for a newsletter and then they send you like events. So, if I've been, also with planning Startup Weekend, there's like Latinette, like the Latinas in Tech always have events. And so I think just keep an eye on your email. Like right now, literally that's the best form. Dylan also has like a whole network that he's posting on the LinkedIn. So everything's becoming more virtual. You know how we used to have Facebook friends and you send friends, like that's how work is being done. Even LinkedIn is currently adapting to that. Now they have groups. So if you attend a virtual workshop, they'll put you into a private group where everybody kind of hangs out and can connect. So taking advantage of that, of just signing up, that's like literally the first step to do. And in most of these events, they don't even see you, so you can really just have your laptop out and it's just listening. And they'll give an email. You just copy and paste that email or find them on LinkedIn saying, hey, I saw you at such and such event or webinar, and you go. So I think if you are interested in a subject, people are doing all of these events, so just going for them.
That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, no, that is really good advice, Brenda. And I think that one, you can never go wrong really just asking for advice. People are always happy to provide advice. But I've personally been sort of taking this time more to focus on reconnecting with professional connections that I've made in the past, because I feel like during this time, it's nice to see a familiar face. People are really open to maybe reaching out to someone that you haven't talked to in a few months, and people really enjoy that with how uncertain everything is. So I think that I've been using this time not only to reconnect with people, but also do some sort of side projects away from not necessarily remote work, but so about this obviously, Bianca, but working on the Venture Capital Club at Menlo College, which of course you're involved with as well. But, taking that time to not only network for myself and make some interesting professional connections, but try and build bridges between other students and at Menlo and professional networks that they want to be a part of. So I think it's sort of twofold, I guess. I mean, you could say with networking, it never really stops, remote, not remote, it's always good to be doing it. But I do think when it's time of uncertainty, like right now, it's even more important to maintain connections you've already made and reconnect with people and establish those.
Wow. I myself did not think about this before, and I've been reconnecting as well, but more with family and friends. And I was focusing maybe on newer connections, but I think it's a really good thing to go back and check in with our professional network as well, and just chatting maybe over Zoom. I think that's a really great idea. And just a little bit for the audience, Sam is founding the new Venture Capital Club coming up in the fall at Menlo College. We're all really excited. We already had our first Zoom meeting for the Venture Capital Club. We had a great discussion with 3 very famous VCs in the area. And I'm really excited for what we have lined up. Maybe, Sam, we can discuss this in another episode of the podcast of Leverage Your Potential. And Colton, we want to hear from you. What are your tips on networking in these times?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sam. Like, it's really hard to make new connections right during this time. I mean, rekindling old things is probably the best route to go through. But like for people that really like the in-person connections, such as me, like I found most of my networking, whether I'm just walking in downtown or in the office, just chatting on the way in the elevator, or, you know, just through old connections. Like that's how I make mine. So when I'm trying to meet new people, right now I'm kind of just trying to expand in my company because I'm so new. So I set up new meetings with different groups, just be like, hey, I'm new, like, what do you do? Like, how are we related? Like, how did you get to where you are? Sort of conversations like that, just to like expand my knowledge of the company and try to learn more about different people, and how they got there. And then I guess just with all this free time, go on LinkedIn Learning. There's a million different things you can learn, and to try to better yourself for an internship or for a job in the future.
That's great. I think especially for the Menlo students who will be doing internships in the summer, I think just coming up to their colleagues and asking, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about your story? People love talking about themselves. I think it's a great way of learning how the company works, what's the culture in there, and learning useful advices for your own work as an intern. And also, I love that you mentioned LinkedIn Learning. I didn't know that before the pandemic started, but all Menlo students have free access to LinkedIn Learning. So I think we should all be taking advantage of that. Just before we end our conversation, we here at Leverage Your Potential, we always like to hear and ask what our guests are reading. What do you guys currently have on your bookmark? Let's start with Brenda and Sam and Colton.
So a lot of my books are still in my Menlo dorm, but I came across a Ta-Nehisi Coates book named The Water Dancer. I came, connected to this, or, I feel like connected because he's just a really cool author in Dr. Lisa Mendelman's class. And it, if you're into just culture and understanding history, it's a great book to read. Very descriptive, and it's a great read. I'm halfway through, so that's what I'm currently reading.
So this one's going to be super cliche in Silicon Valley, but right now I'm reading the second book by Yuval Noah Harari, which is called Homo Deus, and it's the second book. The first one is called Sapiens, and it's basically a sort of recap of human history all the way up until this point, combining science, history, technology, and I can definitely say that I did not pay attention in my high school history classes or first year college. Not something that interests me, but this guy is just an amazing writer and makes history entertaining, just incredibly entertaining. So I would definitely recommend that to anyone who's interested in technology, the future. Read that book. It's called Sapiens.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, most of my time is just spent on screens. So whenever I'm not working, I'm pretty much outside on walks or just trying to venture. So mostly focus on like podcasts, nothing in particular, but just like LinkedIn Learning, it's like another resource that people give advice to all the time. Mostly I've been focusing on stock market things just to learn more about that, since the whole world goes through that. And just things to better myself in my job. And since I had no technical experience going into this job, and now I'm deep into data analytics and working with engineers all day. So it's just things to help me work.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing all your great tips on working remotely and all your content recommendation for this much needed time. And it was really a pleasure chatting with all of you today. I think there's a lot of things that the future interns of Menlo College will be using for their own internships. And if you want to find this episode of our podcast, you will be able to access this via our career services blog. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leverage Your Potential podcast. Episodes are posted weekly and can be found on our blog at blog.menlo.edu/career-services/. Make it a great day.